It's time to engage in authentic diversity and to have the conversations that aren't happening in your organization. Through these episodes, I'm going to pour out my heart and give you tips for how to do diversity, equity, and inclusion in real ways. We're going to start addressing the issues that have never been addressed. I'm going to give you brief nuggets and affirmations that you can use in your workplace so that you are effective in the work that you do. It's time to get real. Let's stop playing diversity.
Hey friends, today I want to talk to you about grace. Many times when we think about grace, we're thinking about it from a spiritual perspective. In the pandemic, we saw people give a lot of grace to people with small children or with caregiving responsibilities. When it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, a lot of people have been given grace. What that means is that the issues that continue to happen in the U.S. are not new, but the behaviors and the responses are the same. There hasn't always been accountability to ensure that rights are protected for people from marginalized groups. And over again, the people from those marginalized groups will continue to go, with the flow. And some people might say it's because they're not in the majority, they don't have power, there will be retaliation or consequences for pushing against a system. But I want to also say that individuals have a right to decide if they're going to grant grace to people who keep getting it wrong. I think about this topic because in 2020, particularly as it relates to racial equity, so many people wrote books. There were a lot of training. There was a lot of consulting. There was just so much that was going on that was available to people. If anyone wanted to know anything about diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, justice, they could figure it out because someone was giving the information, whether it was on YouTube or Instagram or in a book or through an organization. The time was ripe to learn. Fast forward to 2023. The behaviors are the same. Despite all the investment, all the book clubs, and all the things that were put in place to make sure that things are different, there are no changes. And today I want to talk to the people who directly feel the impact of there being no change. You have a right to decide if you want to grant grace to the people who are not changing. This may be a radical concept, but I think that in the same way that I talked about people having diversity thresholds, there are grace thresholds. If you're tired of people doing the same thing with the same results and they're not positive, then you have every right to say, I don't believe that person. I don't think that they're serious about diversity or they're playing diversity. That's my story. I don't have a high tolerance for playing diversity at all. That means that if someone is able to engage in their profession and be brilliant, then it's a choice for them to not do the work when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I take that choice personally, particularly if they're going to work with me, particularly if they're going to use the vocabulary, and particularly if they are saying that they are a diversity advocate, ally, or even accomplice. I'm literal about this, and I don't have time to placate. I don't have time to try and make someone feel good about themselves when they're not doing the work in the first place. That's just me. But today's episode is for people who kind of feel guilty about having to put themselves aside for organizations and spaces that aren't doing the work. I say give yourself permission to say, I'm disappointed. I expect more, and I demand more. Now, that may be another episode when we're talking about what that looks like to demand DEI excellence, but you start by saying that you expect something that's not happening and you hold to that. If someone tells you that you're wrong, you're harsh, you're rude, you're difficult, you're not being fair, guess what? That's their problem. It's not yours. Stand in your place of grace. Own your grace threshold and move from there. That's the only way we're going to see changes in these spaces and in the relationships that we're trying to build as it connects back to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Friends, today's episode is short and sweet. It is very practical. It is pretty much telling you that if you see something and it's not right, it's okay. And if you aren't at a space where you can give people the grace to continue to misuse diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's okay too. That's your nugget. Today's affirmation is, I boldly stand in my place of grace. I boldly stand in my place of grace. Own that, friends. You know the deal. Contact me at Dr. Monica Cox on all social media platforms, info@drmonicacox.com. If you have other conversations or want to continue the conversation, let me know, DM me, and let's keep this movement going.